the complete story. Intra. She arrived at Hogwarts having memorized every textbook, determined to prove that a girl born to Muggle dentists could belong in a world of ancient magic. They called her a know-it-all, a bossy bookworm, insufferable. She became the brightest witch of her age, the architect of Voldemort's downfall, and the most powerful minister for magic in a generation. This is the story of Hermione Granger, the girl who refused to be defined by the blood in her veins. Chapter 1, Muggle-born Beginnings, 1979–1991. Hermione Jean Granger was born on the 19th of September, 1979, to two Muggle dentists in a comfortable London suburb. From the beginning, she was different in ways her parents couldn't explain. Books flew to her hands when she wanted them. Bullies who mocked her found their shoelaces inexplicably knotted together. She made flowers bloom in winter and changed the color of her teachers' hair when they frustrated her. She excelled at everything academic, but struggled to connect with other children who found her intensity overwhelming. She had no friends. She had books instead, consuming them voraciously, finding in stories the companionship the real world denied her. When the letter from Hogwarts arrived, delivered by a confused owl who never visited a dental practice before, everything suddenly made sense. Magic was real, and she was part of it. The strangeness that had isolated her wasn't a flaw, it was a gift. While other 11-year-olds might have been frightened by this strange new world, Hermione approached it as she approached everything, through exhaustive research. She bought every book on Diagon Alley's shelves. By the time she boarded the Hogwarts Express, she had memorized Hogwarts. A history, practiced basic spells until she could perform them flawlessly, and learned the names of every notable witch and wizard of the past century. She was terrified, though she would never admit it. A Muggle-born entering a world that had barely accepted her kind for centuries, where families like the Malfoys considered her blood to be dirty, where even progressive wizards sometimes looked at her with surprise when she excelled. But fear had never stopped Hermione Granger from anything. If the wizarding world expected her to fail, she would simply have to prove them wrong. Chapter 2, Finding Her Place, 1991–1992. The Sorting Hat placed Hermione in Gryffindor, though it had seriously considered Ravenclaw. Her hand shot up in every class, her answers always correct, her manner always slightly superior because she couldn't help showing what she knew. Professors praised her. Classmates avoided her. She was the bushy-haired know-it-all who made everyone else feel stupid. She had traded one kind of isolation for another. At least in the Muggle world, she had understood the rules. Here, she excelled at magic but failed at friendship, and she didn't know which hurt more. Halloween night changed everything. Ron Weasley's cruel comment about her having no friends sent Hermione crying into the girls' bathroom, where she spent hours sobbing in a stall, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake coming to this world at all. She didn't know a mountain troll had been released into the castle. She didn't know Harry Potter and Ron Weasley were coming to warn her. When the troll crashed through the door, 12 feet of ugliness and violence, Hermione was cornered. Harry jumped on its back. Ron levitated its club and dropped it on the creature's head. Together, 3 11-year-olds defeated something that should have killed them. When Professor McGonagall arrived, Hermione lied. She told the professor she had gone looking for the troll because she had read about them, protecting the boys who had risked expulsion to save her. In that moment, a friendship was forged that would shape the fate of the wizarding world. She helped Harry and Ron pursue the Philosopher's Stone through enchanted flames, Devil's Snare, and flying keys. While Harry faced Voldemort's spirit and Ron sacrificed himself on the chessboard, Hermione solved the logic puzzle that allowed Harry to proceed. Her contribution was intellectual rather than physical, but no less essential. Chapter 3, Petrification, 1992–1993. Second year, Hermione tackled her greatest challenge yet, brewing Polyjuice potion. It was S.P.E.W. magic, supposedly impossible for a 12-year-old, requiring a month of preparation and ingredients stolen from Snape's private stores. She brewed it perfectly in a bathroom haunted by moaning Myrtle, risking expulsion with every step. The plan was to infiltrate the Slytherin common room disguised as Crabbe and Goyle. Harry and Ron succeeded. Hermione's portion went wrong. She had accidentally used cat hair instead of human hair and spent weeks in the hospital wing with fur and a tail. When students began turning up petrified, their bodies frozen as stone, Hermione researched obsessively. She was the one who identified the monster as a basilisk, a giant serpent that killed with its gaze, but merely petrified if seen through a reflection. She was the one who realized it was traveling through the pipes, that the voice Harry heard in the walls was Snake's speech only he could understand. She had just figured everything out when she encountered the basilisk herself. Using a mirror to look around corners saved her life. The reflected gaze petrified rather than killed. She was found near the library, frozen solid, the torn page clutched in her fist with the word pipes scribbled on it. For weeks, Hermione lay in the hospital wing, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to help her friends. But even petrified, she had found a way. Harry discovered the page in her hand and used it to locate the Chamber of Secrets and save Ginny Weasley. She was revived with Mandrake restorative draft and ran to the Great Hall, throwing her arms around Harry as if no time had passed. They had won. She had contributed. Even frozen to stone, Hermione Granger had refused to be useless. Chapter 4, Time and Justice, 1993-1994. Third year, Professor McGonagall granted Hermione's impossible request. Permission to take every single class offered at Hogwarts simultaneously. The solution was a time turner, a device that allowed her to relive hours and attend multiple classes scheduled at the same time. For an entire year, Hermione lived more hours than anyone else at Hogwarts. She attended arithmancy at 9 and ancient runes at 9, divination at 3 and Muggle studies at 3. She slept less than should have been survivable, her nerves fraying, her temper sharpening, driving herself toward collapse in pursuit of perfect marks. She championed Buckbeak the Hippogriff when Draco Malfoy's father demanded its execution, researching legal precedents obsessively, helping Hagrid prepare his defense, crying when justice failed and the creature was condemned anyway. She was the first to realize that their Professor Remus Lupin was a werewolf, but she kept his secret out of respect rather than exposing him. She also punched Draco Malfoy in the face when he mocked Hagrid's tears, an act of violence so unexpected that Malfoy was too stunned to retaliate. Hermione's composure had limits, and cruelty to innocents exceeded them. When the truth about Sirius Black emerged, when they discovered that Peter Pettigrew was the true traitor hiding as Ron's rat, everything fell apart. Pettigrew escaped. Sirius was recaptured, facing the Dementor's kiss. All seemed lost. Dumbledore gave them a chance. Hermione used the time turner one last time, traveling back 3 hours with Harry. They saved Buckbeak from execution and used the Hippogriff to rescue Sirius from the tower. It was the first time Hermione used time travel for something other than education. It was the first time she bent rules to save innocent lives. It would not be the last. Chapter 5, S.P.E.W and the Tournament, 1994-1995. Fourth year, Hermione discovered a cause that would define her adult life. At the Quidditch World Cup, she witnessed house elf treatment for the first time and was appalled. The wizarding world accepted their servitude as natural, as simply how things were. Hermione saw slavery. She founded the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, knitting hats and socks to free Hogwarts elves, badgering classmates for support. They mocked her. They called it S.P.E.W. They refused to see what she saw, that a society built on unpaid labor was fundamentally unjust. No one joined. Everyone laughed. Hermione persisted anyway, as she would persist for decades until the laws finally changed. The Triwizard tournament brought Viktor Krum into her life, the famous Bulgarian seeker who saw past her bushy hair and prominent teeth to the remarkable witch beneath. He spent weeks in the library, pretending to study, working up the courage to speak to her. When he finally asked her to the Yule Ball, Hermione was genuinely shocked that someone famous had noticed her. She descended the staircase in periwinkle blue robes, her hair sleek with magical straightening, transformed from bookworm to beauty. Viktor Krum offered his arm. Ron Weasley, who had waited too long to ask her himself, finally noticed what had been in front of him for years. His jealousy manifested as cruelty, and their fight that night revealed feelings neither was ready to acknowledge. When Harry's name emerged from the Goblet of Fire, when the wizarding world turned against him, Hermione was the only student who believed him immediately. She spent months helping him prepare for tasks meant for wizards years older, researching dragons, teaching him the summoning charm, never doubting his account of Voldemort's return even when doubt was easier. Chapter 6. Dumbledore's Army, 1995–1996. Fifth year brought tyranny to Hogwarts in pink cardigans and kitten plates. Dolar's Umbridge refused to teach defensive magic, insisting there was no threat, no returned Dark Lord, no need for students to learn to protect themselves. Hermione's solution was characteristically bold. If the school wouldn't teach them, they would teach themselves. She organized Dumbledore's Army, recruiting students from every house except Slytherin, finding Harry the platform to share what he knew. She chose the Room of Requirement as their meeting place, a chamber that appeared only when needed, perfectly suited to their purpose. She created enchanted coins to communicate meeting times, inspired by the Dark Mark, but turned to better purposes. She jinxed the membership parchment so that any traitor would face consequences. When Marietta Edgecombe betrayed them, Sneak erupted across her face in permanent pimples. The DA became the resistance that would later defend Hogwarts. Students who had never cast a defensive spell learned to produce patronesses. Children who had been taught magic was safe learned that magic was also war. At the Department of Mysteries, Hermione fought Death Eaters alongside her friends. She was struck by a curse from Antonin Dolohov that would have killed her instantly if she hadn't silenced him mid-incantation. Even weakened, the curse nearly ended her life. She spent weeks recovering, 10 different potions daily, scars that would never fully fade. Chapter 7. War Preparations, 1996–1997. Sixth year, the world darkened around them. Hermione confronted Cormac McLagan during Quidditch tryouts to ensure Ron made the team, one of her few acts of rule-breaking purely for love rather than justice. Her feelings for Ron had grown impossible to ignore, though neither could express them properly. She watched Ron pursue Lavender Brown with a jealousy she didn't know how to name. She watched the war approach with dread she couldn't prevent. She joined the Slug Club, recognized by Professor Slughorn as exceptionally talented. But her mind was elsewhere, on Horcruxes, on Voldemort, on the growing certainty that childhood was ending. When Dumbledore fell from the astronomy tower, when Snape's betrayal shattered everything they believed, Hermione made her choice without hesitation. She would not return to Hogwarts for 7th year. She would hunt Horcruxes with Harry. She would fight. But first, she would do the hardest thing she had ever done. Chapter 8. The Hunt, 1997–1998. The night before leaving to join the fight, Hermione obliviated her own parents. She modified their memories so completely that they forgot they had ever had a daughter. She implanted false identities, false histories, a desire to move to Australia where they would be safe from the Death Eaters who would certainly target her family. If she died, they would never grieve. If she lived, she could find them, restore their memories, explain what she had done. It was the sacrifice of a child who loved her parents too much to let them suffer for her choices. The Horcrux hunt nearly broke all 3 of them. Months of camping in frozen forests, rationing food, moving constantly to avoid snatchers. The locket Horcrux they carried poisoned their minds with doubt and anger. Ron left after a terrible fight, and Hermione chose to stay with Harry, though her heart shattered at the sound of Ron's departure. At Malfoy Manor, Hermione faced her darkest hour. Bellatrix Lestrange recognized the sword of Gryffindor and assumed they had broken into her vault. She tortured Hermione for information, carving the word mudblood into her arm with a cursed blade that would scar forever. Hermione screamed until her voice broke, but she never gave up her friends. She never told Bellatrix anything true. She endured torture that would have broken most adults and emerged with her loyalty intact. Dobby rescued them. They escaped to Shell Cottage. And when the time came to break into Gringotts, Hermione polyjuiced herself as Bellatrix Lestrange. She walked into the bank wearing the face of her torturer, performing the role flawlessly, stealing the Hufflepuff cup and escaping on a dragon over London. Chapter 9. The Battle of Hogwarts, May 1998. Hermione and Ron descended into the Chamber of Secrets together. Ron mimicked the Parseltongue sounds Harry had used to open the chamber, a feat of memory and desperation that shouldn't have worked but did. Hermione stabbed the Hufflepuff cup with a basilisk fang, another piece of Voldemort's soul destroyed by her hand. In the chaos of battle, after years of circling each other, Ron mentioned saving the house elves. He had remembered. He had learned. Hermione kissed him in the middle of a war, the least romantic setting imaginable, and it was perfect because it was real. She dueled Bellatrix Lestrange alongside Ginny Weasley and Luna Lovegood, 3 young witches facing the woman who had tortured Hermione, who had killed Sirius, who had driven Neville's parents to madness. Molly Weasley finished the fight, but Hermione had stood her ground against her nightmares. When Voldemort fell, Hermione was there. She had been there since the beginning, the Muggle-born who outperformed every pureblood, who never stopped fighting, who made victory possible through intelligence, courage, and unshakable love. Chapter 10. After the War, 1998-2017. Hermione returned to Hogwarts to complete her NEWTS, the only member of the trio to do so. She needed to finish. She needed to prove that, even after everything, she could still excel at the thing that had first made her feel worthy. She joined the Ministry of Magic and rose quickly through the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. The society that had mocked S.P.E.W watched as Hermione revolutionized house elf legislation, improving their rights and working conditions, vindicating every lonely meeting she had held years before. She transferred to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, then rose to deputy head, then head. Eventually, she became Minister for Magic, the highest office in Wizarding Britain. The Muggle-born who had once feared she didn't belong now led the entire magical government. She married Ron Weasley. They had 2 children, Rose and Hugo. Their relationship was imperfect, as all real relationships are, but built on a foundation of friendship forged when they were 11 years old facing a mountain troll together. On platform 9 3/4, 19 years after the battle, Hermione sent her daughter Rose to Hogwarts. She had come so far from the bushy-haired girl who had memorized every textbook out of fear of not measuring up. She had measured up. She had exceeded every expectation. She had changed the world. Outro. Hermione Granger's story is proof that courage takes many forms. She was never the prophesied hero, never the chosen one. She chose herself. A Muggle-born in a world that despised her blood. A girl in a society that underestimated her gender. A know-it-all who learned that knowledge without action is meaningless. She modified her own parents' memories to keep them safe, bearing that grief alone. She let herself be tortured rather than betray her friends, bearing those scars forever. She fought for house elves when everyone mocked her and won. She married for love, raised children, led a nation. The brightest witch of her age became the most influential witch of her century. Not because of prophecy or destiny, but because she worked harder than anyone else, loved fiercer than anyone expected, and never, ever gave up. From a Muggle dentist's daughter to Minister for Magic, Hermione Granger proved that the magic we make matters more than the blood we're born with. She proved that brilliance combined with bravery can change everything. She proved that the know-it-all everyone dismissed was the hero they needed all along. Notes. Key themes: knowledge as power, fighting prejudice, loyalty, standing up for the oppressed, intelligence and bravery combined. Important relationships: Harry, Ron romantic, her parents, Victor, Crumb, Ginny, Luna. Emotional beats: isolation before friendship, the troll attack bonding, petrification, time turner stress, obliviating parents, Bellatrix torture, kiss with Ron. Visual suggestions: books and libraries, time turner spinning, Polyjuice transformations, S.P.E.W. Badges: the DA coin, Ministry of Magic. Word count, ~3,100 words. Estimated narration time, 11-12 minutes.